Hello, Samadan here, and today I'd like to talk about an old friend of mine, the Bracer Super Shuffle. Things have changed a fair amount since last time. The old method of disenchanting the blues and scrapping the greens has all changed now. We don't get any blues to disenchant, and the greens give us extra materials that we didn't get before. So the whole formula and everything that I came up with before has changed quite significantly. So what I want to talk about now is a new method of trying to work out how to make best use of the materials we get from scrapping bracers and how best to turn it into gold for our particular server and the things we can make. So what this boils down to now is we have the bracers here. We make Tidespray bracers. We don't use any optional reagents, we just make them as they are. Everything will be green and we scrap them all. Then the things we get from it now is Tidespray linen, nylon thread and expulsum, same kind of rates as we had before. Now in addition to that we have deep sea satin and embroidered deep sea satin. Now the question is, what do we do with these things? There's a number of options we do have. We can make deep sea bags out of the deep sea satin, and whether you make the higher end bags or not depends on whether you've got any hydrocore from doing any mythic dungeons. If not, just make the regular deep sea bags as long as that's a profit for you. We also get a lot of this deep sea satin. Now there's not that many uses for it, but one thing we can do, which kind of makes up for the fact that we don't get any blues now, is we can make these into Sinister Combatant bracers, if you've got the rank 3 for that. So you feed in some deep sea satin, some embroidered deep sea satin and nylon thread from all of these, and you can make Sinister Combatant's bracers, which will be purple, and then you can disenchant those to get your veiled crystals and umbra shards like you used to before. Now there are still plenty of other ways of maybe making things with alchemy or a leather worker, so have a think about other characters that you might have that might be able to make this cheaper. The main thing here is making use of the materials that we get out of scrapping, which is why I've come up with this new spreadsheet that takes into account all of these materials, and then we can make a decision ourselves based on what we're going to do with those. There's a couple of other things as well to bear in mind. Uncanny Gear is still selling well at the moment and probably will do for the next few weeks leading up into Shadowlands. Even though we've now got the catch-up gear with the Scourge Invasion event, we still can make Uncanny Gear to fill up slots, and people will still be buying this, I'm pretty sure, between now and maybe a few weeks into Shadowlands. So there's still plenty of opportunities to make Uncanny Gear. That, for me, on my server, is giving me the best profits at the moment. Obviously your server may vary. I'm also selling a lot of enchants, which is why I need the veiled crystals and umbra shards. And then, in addition to that, we've also sold a huge amount of deep sea bags, so those are doing particularly well. So what I'm looking at here is a way to spread these materials into each of these different gold making avenues and try to make the most of it, and then try and work out what kind of cost or profit margins we're working with, because obviously this all takes time, doing all the scrapping and disenchanting and re-scrapping. So you want to make sure that what you're doing and the time you're taking to do it is actually going to be worth your while as well. So I've tried to incorporate all of that into one spreadsheet, which I'll get to in a moment. The other thing we can do with our Tidespray linen and nylon thread is make more bracers, and those we can either disenchant into gloom dust, which is the third enchanting material we might need, or we can feed them back into the scrapper and create more of these as well. So let's have a look at the spreadsheet. So here is the new spreadsheet. It gives you a fair amount of data to look at for the moment. So the main thing I'm focusing on here is, okay, have you bought some Tidespray linen and how much have you bought? And that feeds into all the other numbers. The other thing you'd want to fill in, so you've got these to fill in here. Obviously this is your nylon thread at exalted price, which I'm assuming most people will have at this point. I'm also assuming you can make your deep sea bags at rank 3 and your Sinister Combatant satin bracers at rank 3 as well. Those are both quite important. And then I've put in here, this is for you to input all the market prices for your various materials that we're going to use to work out the rough profits and things like that. So we've got deep sea satin, deep sea bags, veiled crystals, umbra shards and gloom dust. And this is where we get into kind of like the rough ballpark area. So with this I'm saying look at all the enchants you can make and look at the rough kind of price they are. You'll probably have a feel for what's a good thing to sell on your server and what kind of profit margins you're currently getting, so make use of that market knowledge you have on your own server and then feed that into this spreadsheet. The same with Uncanny Gear at the moment. I'm getting Uncanny Gear for a decent profit of at least 1,000 gold, if not more. and I'm feeding that Uncanny Gear into leatherworking, blacksmithing and tailoring, so that's another thing to look for. So what you need to do is basically look at these first and say, okay, have I got some Tidespray and how much have I got? So if we go back to Samadan now and have a look here. So Samadan currently has some Tidespray. We've got currently on our bags at the moment 2,826, and we have a smart average buy price of 1 gold 98.71. So I'm going to put that into here. So 1 gold 98.71. What's that? 74. 71 into the spreadsheet here, and we bought 2826. So we bought 2,826. So now this feeds into the numbers here. So what we've got here is the cost of one bracer is 22 gold, and with this quantity here we can make 282 bracers. The total cost will be 6,200 gold. Then scrapping all the bracers, because they'll all be green, will give us this amount of Tidespray linen, nylon threads, embroidered deep sea satin and expulsum. So what I want to do now is decide, this is the next thing you need to input, is the proportion of Sinister bracers you want to make. The best way to explain this is you could just make first as many Sinister bracers as you can, which will be a proportion of 1. So we're making as many Sinister bracers as we can, because we're going to use up this embroidered deep sea satin. Because what we want to do here is use up this spare material down here, the embroidered deep sea satin. So we're basically looking at this and saying, okay, how many Sinister Combatant bracers can I make with this embroidered deep sea satin here? It takes into account all of the other materials and then looks at what we're left with. So in this case, with our current proportion at 1, we can make 41 Sinister bracers to disenchant. With the spare materials, we still have some left over, so we can make 3 deep sea bags, and we've got enough expulsum to roughly make about 1 uncanny piece of gear. So we could change our proportion here, and what you'll see here is all these numbers change as we change our proportion. So say maybe I don't want to use up all of this deep sea satin, maybe I want to save some of the materials for other things, like I want to have enough expulsum to be able to make some Uncanny Gear, because that's usually the best profit. Say I didn't want to make use of this embroidered deep sea satin at all. If I change this proportion down to 0, then we've still got all this embroidered deep sea satin left, which to be honest on most servers doesn't actually have much of a value. But that does mean we get a whole load of expulsum, which we make use of this expulsum here, the 45 expulsum, and we turn that into potential Uncanny Gear, which may have a good value of about 15,000, depending on how many pieces we can make and spread across whichever characters we have. So that's a good option, and that you'll probably find, if your figures are like mine, that is probably your best case scenario for profit. Down here we have the rough profit calculation based on these rough values and the market values here. Our rough profit here is looking at something like 12,000 gold out of the 2,800 Tidespray that we bought here. So that's probably, in my case, probably the best use of my expulsum to make Uncanny Gear, but then that would be focusing just on the Uncanny market and a little bit of the deep sea bag market. What I want to do is maybe spread myself across all the markets, because in this case I'm not making use of the embroidered deep sea satin, I still have that left, in which case I've not got any Umbra shards or veiled crystals to turn into enchants, so that's a whole nother market that I'm not making use of. So maybe I want to go a bit more of a balance between the two. So say my proportion of Sinister is something like 0.5. So I'm making some Sinister bracers to disenchant. In this case I'm going to make 20 bracers to disenchant. That's going to give me a few pieces of Umbra shard and veiled crystal to make enchants, of which I can sell depending on the prices of these. I've gone for a very conservative enchant price of 250. Say enchants were going for 500 gold on average, then this is a little bit more profit here, and the rough profit here is 8,000. So it's not as high profit, but I may get more sales because I'm spreading myself over more markets. It's all about diversity here. And I'm also making good use of my materials that I'm left with, so I can make use of the Umbra shards and the veiled crystals. I've not got quite as much wastage of embroidered deep sea satin, only 217 here. And then I've got a nice proportion here of almost 2-to-1 Tidespray linen to nylon thread, and you can turn that into bracers. You can make another 30 bracers out of this, probably a little bit less because that's not quite 150. And the choices here is you can either turn those bracers back into the process, and you can scrap those and get some more materials out of them that way, or you can disenchant those and get yourself some gloom dust, because if you're going to be making enchants you might need some gloom dust as well. So it's quite complicated in the sense that the number of things you can do with the materials you get is quite wide and varied. So in this new case, I've not gone for a specific formula to try and break down the price and give you a price for your Umbra Shards, your Veiled Crystals and your Expulsum. I've kind of scrapped all of that, pardon the pun, and this is more about just trying to get good use out of the materials. You might want to decide, okay, I'm going to use something different to make my enchants. I'm going to use alchemy or trinkets or something from leatherworking that I can get much cheaper than this, and that will give you an option to make your enchants that way. This is more about just using up your materials you got here. So if I go for a proportion of Sinister here of about 0.5, obviously you can play with these numbers. This now gives me an indicator of what I want to do with this stuff. So okay, I'm going to make out of this 2,826 Tidespray Linen. I'm going to make myself 282 bracers, and then from there I'm going to make 20 Sinister bracers to disenchant. I'm going to make 10 deep sea bags, put those on and probably get some sales quite rapidly, and then I'm going to make some Uncanny Gear and try and sell that as well. So I've got a good mix and spread of things here. Along here on the right we've got some average numbers of the return rates from Scrapping Bracers. This is data that I've collected between myself and some very helpful viewers. We've got some good numbers here for Deep Sea Satin, Embroidered Deep Sea Satin and Expulsum. You could obviously, if your numbers are slightly different, you can change those. We've also got disenchant rates for Umbra Shards and Veiled Crystals. This is making sure that you've got the tools of the trade for enchanting, the Uin's enchanting rod. You definitely need to have that as well. This is assuming that you're pretty well set up for the Bracer Shuffle. And then this is the return rate of gloom dust, which is 8.92 on average per disenchant of a green bracer. And then just as a reminder, this is what you need to make each of the items: the Tidespray Linen for the bracers, the deep sea bags and the Sinister Combatant bracers, and the materials required for those. Those all feed into these formulae here, which is how this all changes. And then talking about the actual prices for your mats, this is where we go into rough ballparks for creating the value of our materials. So rather than having a long complicated string, I'm just going for Veiled Crystals and Umbra Shards is to use either Smart Average Buy or DB Market. So in this case I've gone for max the first Smart Average Buy, or use DB Market if that happens to be higher. You may decide you want to sell them on the auction house. That's where this value here, so the Veiled Crystals, you can sell them for 1,560, or you can make enchants and make more money that way. And that is based off our rough enchant price here. If enchants were down here at 250, then you go back here, and this is slightly more negligible in terms of what you can get out of it. And this is all very rough because some enchants take different amounts of Veiled Crystals and Umbra Shards. Please bear in mind this is just rough figures. This is just to give you a guideline more than anything else, which is why I'm just going for the Smart Average Buy or DB Market for these materials. For Expulsum, I'm going with the price it costs to make the bracers, so that's the mat price of Tidespray Linen times 10 plus 5 times the price of nylon thread, which is in this case 0.48, and then times the whole thing by 6.25, which is the amount of Expulsum you get from one bracer here at 0.16. So that would be assuming you're just using the Expulsum and not taking into account all of these bonus materials you're getting out of your scrapping. So usually for me at Expulsum, I've got a very healthy profit margin in my Uncanny Gear, which is why I've gone for a rough one here and consider all of these as bonuses when it comes to pricing my Expulsum. Obviously, if you find your experience is different, then look at the price here and decide whether you're going to choose something different yourself. And then for Gloom Dust, I'm thinking either take the DB Market value, whichever is lower, you might be able to buy some cheaply off the auction house, or take the price it costs to make a bracer, which is here, and divide that by 8.92, which is the disenchant rate you get for Tidespray bracers. So these are the rough figures I've put in here in terms of selling my Uncanny Gear and my enchants. This works for me as a rough ballpark, and then I can spread myself across several markets. So we're going into enchants, we're going into Uncanny Gear, and we're going into bags. So hopefully this will be a good way of turning any cheap Tidespray Linen we get into something worth more. Obviously you have to go through the whole scrapping and disenchanting, which takes up time, what I'm going to do is go through and scrap this amount on my character, and then I'm going to send all of the things I make over to a second character, and as a test I'm going to work out exactly how much gold I make out of this to see how accurate my rough ballparks are. I imagine it's going to be higher because I've been quite conservative with my numbers here. So if it's higher, that's great. Obviously, don't do this if your profit margins seem to be only negligible. Your time will be much better spent doing other things. You might want to decide to focus on enchants, you might want to focus on Uncanny Gear, or you just want to make a whole load of deep sea bags. It all depends on what's profitable most on your server. So in order to make these, I'm going to need to buy at least half this amount in nylon thread. So I'm going to buy these at my cheapest price possible. So 2826 divided by 2 is 1413. So I'll take that and I will put 1 by mistake, so 1412 will be the rest of those. I'll buy those at that price. That gives me now 1413 in my bags. And then in terms of bracers, I can make 282, which is the same as the number here. I can make 282 bracers. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm not going to add any optional reagents in, and I'm just going to make all of these. Okay, that's all the bracers made. That took about 8 minutes to make all of those. I'm now going to go over and scrap all of those. Probably don't have enough room in my bag, so I'm going to have to clear some space out. Let me just move some of these shadowy masks into my bank. That will give me a bit of extra space. Okay, so I'm using the Easy Scrap add-on here. I've got them all listed here, so I'm going to queue everything up and start scrapping. Now we already have 5 expulsum in our bank, so I need to bear in mind that's an extra 5 I've got on me. Okay, that's the one in our bag scrapped. I'm sure we've got some in the mail we need to go and pick up as well. So let's go pick those up. Okay, let's do this next lot. Okay, and finally the last lot, hopefully. Okay, that's everything scrapped. Let's have a look at what we've got here. So if we say reset the new items, and let's compare this against what we projected we'd get in our spreadsheet. So moving this across to the side. So with the 2,822, the 282 bracers, we should have about 420 Tidespray linen, and we have 425. Nylon thread 423, we've got 437. Deep sea satin 423, and we've got 427, embroidered deep sea satin 417, and we've got 430, and expulsum 45, and we actually got 53. So either we were very lucky or my numbers were conservatively low. Either way, that's positive. So what we have here is a bunch of materials we now need to do something with. So the next thing in our list, using a proportion of Sinister of 0.5, we need to make 20 Sinister bracers to disenchant those, and then we'll get ourselves some Umbra shards and veiled crystals. So let's start that process next. In fact, let's make this a favourite so that we have it at the top. There we go. So we can make 43, we're only going to make 20 though. Okay, with those made, let's disenchant those using TSM Destroy, and let's just hide the shadowy mask. Everything else is all Sinister bracers, so we'll use our scroll wheel macro to disenchant these. Okay, so we have 24 veiled crystals and 25 Umbra shards. Compare that with our numbers. We have 21 Umbra shards and 24 veiled crystals, so that's pretty good. Rounded down, that's probably down to a bit of luck and a bit of conservative values there. Then we have still some deep sea left to make 10 deep sea bags, which is going to be useful. So let's make those. So we can't make any embroidered deep sea bags because I don't have any hydrocore. But if you did, then that would be a good use of that. Even though it uses up a lot of expulsum, it is quite good profit margins at the moment. But I'm going to go for the big bulk sellers as they are at the moment, the deep sea bags. I can make 10 of them here, so I'm going to create all of those. Okay, so there's our 10 deep sea bags. We've still got a little bit of embroidered deep sea satin left. It currently has a min buyout of 3 gold 87. I might be able to sell some. I could always put that on the market. But we do have some veiled crystals and Umbra shards here to make use of, but we also have some nylon thread and Tidespray, which we can make another 30 bracers out of this. So if we make those bracers and disenchant those into gloom dust, then we'll have a good supply of gloom dust as well. So let's create those. Okay, so now we will disenchant those using TSM Destroy again. So this will give us our gloom dust. Okay, those are made, we're doing well. So now we have a little bit of embroidered deep sea satin left, a little bit of deep sea satin left, and we've used up all of our, pretty much most of our nylon thread and Tidespray linen. We've got our 10 bags. We've got a couple of enchants here to just bear in mind those aren't part of our stock yet. We're going to make some more up at the moment. Probably need to get some more enchanting vellum whilst I'm here. So I'll just clear those out in the bank and buy some more of this and then come back to this. Right, so left on our spreadsheet is we can still make about 8 roughly Uncanny Gears on about 3 Expulsum per Uncanny Gear. So it's up to me to decide what to make there. And the same with my enchants now. I can make some enchants based out of this lot here. So let's have a look at what we can make. We're going to use my own experience of what's good on my server and also what TSM tells me is a good profit at the moment. So let's have a look at the Uncanny Gear. I have to bear in mind I have got some Expulsum on me at the moment. We will be using up some extra stock here, so this isn't taken into account of. So if we look at the Uncanny Gear here, we've got the gilded sea weave, a little bit more of deep sea satin and nylon thread here. So those are things we need to think about in terms of purchasing some extra bits and pieces. The gilded sea weave is currently at 3 gold. Wow, my smart average buy price is really high at 25 gold. So we have to make some adjustments there. I have got an excess of 8,000 of it on me at the moment. So looking at this, my profit margins on each of these, I can make... How much Expulsum did I have? It was 33. And according to the spreadsheet, I can make about 8 pieces. So what have we got? We could make probably one of everything, I imagine. So if we were to just queue up one belt, the boots, bracers, cloak, mittens, and pants, that gives me the 6, and then maybe choose something that's got a decent profit margin on it. Something like the belt, again, we'll queue up one of those. And we will queue up some boots as well. So in terms of Uncanny Gear, we'll need to collect some more materials of this. We will have enough Expulsum for this. We need to just get a little bit of extra deep sea satin and the gilded sea weave we have. So that's not part of our calculations here. So let's go grab that. Okay, so we're going to make all this Uncanny Gear. Random what we get, so we'll just have a look and then we'll be selling this on the market. The estimated profit here is already quite high at 13,000 I saw before I started there. So it all depends on what these particular varieties sell for, which is why I'm going for ballparks rather than anything else. And my profit was conservatively lower at 1,000. Obviously you can see on my server the profit margins are currently quite a bit higher than that. So we might make some good sales with those. I've spread myself across lots of markets here. That's the key to this now, is diversification. So now we've got some Uncanny Gear, we've got some bags, now we need to make some enchants to sell. So let's go over to my enchanting. Now I should be able to make use of my stock quantities here. Let's have a look at what we need here. Accords, critical strike, haste are always good. We've got plenty of gloom dust now. Umbra shards, veil crystals are what we need most of there. We have 300, we already have... What's that? 291 in the bank. Let's take those out of the equation so we don't miscalculate. There we go. I've moved out all of the extra gloom dust, veiled crystals and umbra shards from the bank, so we don't include those in our calculations, just for the purposes of science. Let's have a look at what we've got here. So we've got the 24, the 25 and 271 that we created before. Okay, so what can we make out of this? Let's have a look. So we'll probably want to make some Accords of Haste, I imagine. So let's queue up a couple of those. A couple of Accords of Critical Strike. Mastery sometimes. I'll put in a few and then take out things once I run out of materials. And then we'll go down to some weapons. Force Multiplier. This is using a little bit more of our Gloom Dust and Umbra Shards. So we'll queue up a couple of those. And a Machinist Brilliance. A couple of those. How are we doing in terms of gathering wise? We are slightly over here. We have 24, we need a few more, so I'll go back into here, take off one of the, which was the lesser, the Machinist Brilliance. We'll edit that one, take that down to 1, and then gathering wise, we have enough materials to make that, so that's what we can make with our enchants, with our current materials, a 1,800 profit, so it's not huge, but it is diversity. And diversity is what counts here in terms of trying to capture sales across several markets. Okay, so there we go. We've crafted everything that we wanted to make out of our list on our spreadsheet there. We made good use of our materials that we had. We used a little bit extra, obviously, to make the Uncanny Gear, and that had the greatest profit on it at the moment. So we've got a good range of Uncanny Gear all along here. We've got a few enchants to sell, and we've got a few bags to sell. So this is my new methodology for using up the materials that come out of Scrapping Bracers. That took us in total time, what was it, about 40 minutes total, with all the 282 bracers, and that included shifting some things around in the bank and stuff like that. So bear in mind it does take time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send all of those items over to a separate character so I can record the sales over the next few days, and then I'll report back in the comments what they're all sold for eventually, and then we'll see whether that was close to what my projected profit was, or whether, as I expect it to be, much, much higher. So I hope you found that useful. Please do feel free to take a copy of the spreadsheet and use it yourself. Make adjustments according to what you're going to be doing with your Tidespray, and do your own calculations. Use your own map prices if you want to do something slightly different on there. It's really just a ballpark guide more than anything else at this stage, not a complete formula. What I showed you there was my process as to how I would do it personally. And the main thing here is using up the materials, because the one thing I found with the old bracer shuffle that I didn't really take into account of, that I had a huge number of Umbra shards that completely an excess amount that I've still got in my guild bank. So that's no good to me there. I've got over 5,000 at the moment. So it's really important to me at this stage to be able to use up my materials that come out of scrapping. So please do let me know how you get on in the comments below, and then I'll keep you up to date as to how my sales got on, and then hopefully we can all make a lot of gold over the next few weeks. Obviously Shadowlands is coming up very soon, so it's all going to change. There's going to be a whole load of new ways to make gold, so keep an eye on my channel. I'll be doing more videos for Shadowlands Professions. There's lots of exciting things coming up. So until next time, happy gold making, and I'll see you very soon.